Welcome to the Glue Pod.
Hosted by Aaron Glukov.
Can we check in?
You kidding me right now? Go on your phone.
Featuring musicians, hucksters, and some of the shit.
Community of what's going on. You asking me? Let's start the show.
All right, here we go.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Glue Pod. Happy to have Miguel Merino here with me on the pod. Pretty crazy because me and Miguel actually went to elementary school together in Bloomington, Indiana, and then years and years later met at UM.
Yep.
And you were like a top dog, and I was coming in just learning about Philly Joe Jones for the first time in my life. And I came over to your apartment, sit down and play a little for me.
Oh,
I
wow.
can only imagine what that sounded like.
Well, yeah, the roles have been thoroughly reversed at this point. I can tell you that.
Yeah, right.
I know that for sure.
Dude, it's really good to see you, and you're in Bloomington right now.
You too, man. Yeah, great to catch up. Yep, I'm in here. I'm actually traveling tonight, or early tomorrow morning. I'm traveling back to Egypt.
Oh shit! Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, yeah, I have a flight. I'll spend another night in New York. I'll be a night in New York, and then I guess Saturday midnight. Then I start a long trip back over there.
What's involved in that trip?
Man, well, if I start from here, I'm gonna go from Indianapolis to New York, spend the night. Then next day at midnight, fly from New Jersey Airport, Newark to Istanbul. That's about 10 hours. Istanbul to Cairo is 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Then I bought another ticket, a different reservation from Cairo to a kind of resort town on the beach, which is called Sharm el Sheikh, that has another local airport. So I take a 1 hour plane there, or I'll wait about 2 hours in Cairo. I'll get all my stuff out, go and check in again, take this local flight for an hour, arrive to this other airport, then take a 1 hour car to this other little town that I've been living in over the last 4 or 5 months. Yeah, it's going to be...
What's the total travel time?
A lot. I mean, it's going to be
30?
A lot. A lot.
Yeah.
And but that's actually, I'm bringing some instruments back that I had here at my parents' house. Got a little bit more gear while I was here, trying to take stuff back. So that's actually somehow easier than like finding a place to stay in Cairo with somebody, going back to the airport. I'm just going to go stay at the airport, booked a new flight, get there, and just finally get home. Because I still have a place rented out there through next month in this little kind of beach town.
Yeah.
Which has been nice to live there. But from September, I'm going to be back in Cairo, living back in Cairo, where I've been living on and off since 2009.
That's amazing.
And it's been mostly on over the last 11, 12 years. It's mostly on.
Well, it's crazy because we were, just before we started recording, like Digo was over here, we were talking about, we were both at your senior recital. And I feel like everyone in town was there. And I didn't know Digo.
That's one of my greatest memories. Like, that was a really fun recital. I had all my buddies played in the concert and Jaffe, and it was packed. Yeah, there was a great crowd there.
Yeah,
that was so great, man. I had such a great time at UM, like just the community we had, and I still feel so close to all of them. Everyone who I was at school with, older and younger, and the whole vibe was great. And now, watching you and watching other people what they're doing in Miami, like the scene really seems to have blossomed, and people are doing a lot more. There's more venues and stuff that weren't back then.
Yeah,
I'm very strong possibility that I'm gonna come and move there too. If I'm moving back to the States, I would come to Miami, man, because I can't handle the cold. So it's not gonna be New York or Chicago or whatever.
This guy said come take all the gigs, man.
And and the thing is, at this point, I've been like, I've been playing drums in Egypt. I've played with some really great artists in Egypt, notably Fathi Salama. Fathi Salama is an Egyptian pianist and a composer. He arranged the music for Youssou N'Dour, the great Senegalese singer. He's been a super mega star for a long time. 2004 or 5, he won a Grammy for the album called Egypt, which was Youssou N'Dour's lyrics and singing with all of Fathi's arrangements with Oriental instruments and a lot of the Senegalese guys too.
Yeah.
I played with him a lot, playing drums with him. But what I was getting at is that I'm mostly kind of limited to local gigs. In Egypt, the kind of big pop gigs, which I've always wanted to do, are sort of not available to me. And so I haven't gotten to play.
Cultural situation, or is it just a?
I think there's two sides to it. They want Egyptians to play. They want Egyptians, and those gigs, which are a lot of Egyptian pop singers who are super popular all over the Middle East. There's a huge industry, and they make crazy money. They make insane money.
Oh, way.
Especially playing now in Saudi Arabia, and in Kuwait, and in the Gulf. I've heard some stories about just insane places where they play, palaces and Rolexes passed out as tips after a gig and stuff like that. So nobody is subbing out those gigs. And there's kind of a little mafia that like controls these, like the drummers that play on those gigs. There's only a few of them because no way are they subbing that out. So that kind of stuff is really not available. So I don't get to play over there that much. And just living in apartment buildings and stuff, you can't practice at home. And so getting back to what you said about me coming back to Miami and like being the new guy, no, that ain't gonna happen.
Dude.
But and I sort of don't have, I'm not really worried about being a kind of a competitive working drummer, or whatever.
Well, that's the thing about Miami that's great is it's not really a competitive place.
It's not, and that's what's always been so great is that like that's never been a pretentious kind of a scene.
No.
Everyone was always playing on each other's gigs and inviting people to come jam and let's hang, and the community was great.
Yeah.
And so so I don't mean that either. I just mean that I'm kind of, now I'm just kind of looking to be on my own thing, and so it's not a competition in any kind of way. It's like I'm just kind of pursuing this band and my own thing, and I want to keep playing drums. I mean, I have to keep playing, and it's drums and all the hand drums, and then these lyre harp instruments that I've taken up over there.
Well, I want to get deep in that, but first I want to take you back a little bit because I got to honor the fact that you're a jazz drummer. You started back in Bloomington. Like, what age did you start?
I started playing drum set about 10. I was in a kind of band, a school band, after school thing, snare drum. And then I took piano lessons when I was about 10, and my teacher had an old beat up drum set, which I bought from her, and it was a wrap after that.
Yeah.
But growing up in Bloomington, music in public school was great. There's so much connection with IU. IU and the Star of Indiana were always involved in the public schools. I had great music teaching, elementary school, middle school, high school.
Yeah.
And my brother was a jazz student at IU also. He played trumpet through college and didn't play and stopped after that, but it was very serious at that age for him. And I really got into it through him.
Yeah.
And because he was there, I got to meet a lot of the professors there and get close to them and work with them and stuff. So Bloomington was
exposure early. I mean, you got a healthy exposure early to top stuff.
Yeah, I got to start early, and my parents were always really supportive, and they didn't mind having drums in the house, and I was always having people over to play and rehearse at my place and jam and everything, and they loved that.
Yeah.
So I've always been really thankful for that like they let me just kind of go that way.
And then when you were what like led you to go to UM? I mean, was it? I know it's obviously a top institution, but I mean, I'm sure you had a pick between a few, or.
the first time that I heard of was when Dave Liebman came to play in Bloomington, and his drummer named Marco Marcinko went to and I went up to him, after the gig maybe, and talked to him, and he mentioned Steve Rucker, University of Miami.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I remember hearing of it. And then when I was, applying to college and stuff, I applied at IU, I applied at Manhattan, and I applied at and I went to visit. I think I went to visit Manhattan, but didn't really get to see much. But then when I went to met Steve, saw some ensembles, really got a feel for the vibe there and everything. And Manhattan gave me 0 scholarship, and Steve gave me a scholarship.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to get out of Bloomington, and Miami was it. So it was just right off the bat.
And then the thing is, like, we were talking about like how Miami's blossomed and stuff, and I feel like in your generation, you guys kind of laid some of the foundation for that, because you guys had a band mentality, like Jaffe and Swenelo was around at the time, and just whatever, these bands that were like original concepts, maybe mixing in covers, but definitely not the top 40 thing, and working, making money doing it.
I mean, sometimes. I mean, Jaffe had regular gigs. There was a couple weeklies with them. But yeah, really scrapping it out. We were playing some places. I don't remember really what we made, but it was just, local gigs. I never got much into the top 40 thing.
Right.
Which I really kind of regret, because top 40 bands are great to, get a whole lot of stuff together.
Right.
But when I was in New York last month, I got with Graham Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Who was at in the 80s.
Yeah. I've met up with Graham there a few times.
Yeah. And he was telling me that he came to Miami, I guess in the early 80s. He came to New York in about mid-80s. And back then, early 80s Miami, there was all kinds of gigs. And Steve's told me that too. There was gigs everywhere.
Yeah.
Like multiple places in Miami in the 80s had music 7 nights a week. And in the 2000s, like when I was there, that totally didn't exist.
Right.
And I really get the feel for it now. Like, do you see, now more things
weekly
going on?
Yeah. No, there is those venues, and it's funny because a lot of it is like these venues aren't like music venues. A lot of them they're cool spots with a vibe, and they're like, we want music 7 nights a week, and they don't need to worry about making money from us selling tickets, and it's a different like mentality. I think it kind of makes it easier for people down here to get stuff started, because you need to workshop a band for, like, as like it's such a big investment in having something where you're like, hey guys, we can get together and we're all got to pay our bills, and we can make $100 a week for like, do a couple gigs, and then you could build a sound and no one's telling you what to play. And it's a lot different. I feel like in the Northeast, maybe you find some of those gigs, but a lot of times you really got to you got to tour around a lot, and you got to like play gigs that are like real venues, and people, and just go which ultimately the bands here, we drive up to those places anyway, and there's a few traditional venues down here, but most of these like steady weekly type gigs, it's kind of a throwback, because it's like people are there to enjoy the ambiance of the room and enjoy drinking and the food, and there's live music. Yeah. They're not there necessarily.
Yeah, and places like that I think would be a lot less prone to like put so much of the responsibility on the bands to bring their own public, which I've always thought is whack. Like, it's your place. We're there already. 100%. Like, I mean, if we're coming there already, that should be your advertisement. Advertise the place. And so I think places like that already are kind of stable without the live music, and the live music is just an added bonus. They're more willing to like do the right kind of promo.
Right. I feel like that's even getting worse. It was funny because like in this last like little run we did over the weekend, Jason and I were talking about like how crazy it is. Like we're stressed about getting our shit together musically, promoting our own stuff from our social media sites. But then it's like the venues hit you up. You're like, we got to get this. And it's like, and then you were kind of responsible for promoting the venue too.
Right.
And it's like, how much more responsibility as a band can you take on? Like, how many things can you do? It's kind of crazy. I feel like now it's even more like that because of I don't know. It's like social media. Or I don't know what it is, but it's like they kind of depend. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra stuff. I mean, any band that cares about itself is gonna tell everyone to go to their gig already, but they shouldn't like have this. It shouldn't change the deal that you get at a place. It shouldn't. You shouldn't get docked because we're your guests. Like the place should have its own guests.
Right.
But man, Graham was saying in New York,
Yeah.
there's like really no gigs in New York.
Right.
The people that are working are the Broadway shows, the musicals.
Yep.
But he was deep in the African scene for a long time. He's like, all that's gone.
Yeah.
The jazz gigs, there's like local jazz gigs, and there's like the Monday night blues jam for $50. Like same Monday night, man, still paying $50-$100.
No, and I know a lot of the young dudes
that's
who
a problem.
the top New York jazz cats or whatever, they're making a lot of their money doing road stints, trying to get picked up, and they're doing a lot of club. But it's like you said, it's like if you're getting $50. I mean, you better be doing 2 or 3 of those a day. You got to find a little African busking thing,
Yep.
and that's
Exactly.
and the lifestyle in your. I mean,
No,
yeah,
New York is rough.
it's hard. But so then when you came down to UM, like, what were your what were your top experiences? Just like learning. Do you have any good tidbits? Any good anecdotes from that time?
Well, I got with Jaffe pretty early on, maybe my sophomore year. My freshman year, I was just thrilled to be meeting all these people and playing different things and everything. And Miami has always had such a vibrant community and there's all kinds of stuff happening.
Yeah.
As far as like certain highlights, I don't know, but Jaffe was always fun. I mean, and I played in a lot of different things at school, which I really enjoyed. I took some great trips while I was there. I went to the Dominican Republic a couple times. That's when I really started getting this love for folk music and folklore that has kind of carried through with everything I've kind of ever done. And studying too. And the teachers at Miami were all great.
Yeah.
I don't think I was as involved in the Miami music scene as other people had, especially in college. I mean, I remember having some kind of weekly jazz gigs. I played great, like little swing gigs with people from school at different places. Those places, even though they probably didn't pay anything, they always let us do what we wanted.
Yeah.
Little places in the Gables or some funny restaurants there where we could just play, and it was great. And that was some of the best gigs that I had.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a full-time working musician while I was in school, and I sort of never got a chance to be because I left Miami directly after I finished.
And straight to Egypt.
Not quite. I came back to Bloomington for 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
Well, because by the end of school, I had gotten an injury. I had gotten this nerve problem.
That's
I'd
right, I
gotten
remember
a
this.
pinched nerve in both arms. Started in the left one, and the first 6 months of my last year of college, I just played with one hand, and then my right hand got injured from overworking it. So I had to stop. I stopped playing, and I came back here to Bloomington, and I had operations in both elbows. I had this like the funny bone nerve, that runs through here, was pinched in there. So they had to operate to move it up to here, above this bone now. So now the funny bone, my nerve is here, and this area is dead.
That is wild.
I know it was causing me a lot of pain and everything, and it those operations sort of didn't solve the problem. I mean, but it's always come back to playing with better technique and more loosely, and you have to be loose, and I always have to just keep my mind on that because there's nothing else to do about that.
What was the recovery like for that? Just after the surgery, how much time before you got back?
Yeah, I had a cast on for a while, and in a few weeks, 4 or 6 weeks maybe, I would get the cast off, and then I did the other arm.
Was that like hard emotion? Like what was that like going? I mean, there's some similarities being a drummer, like being an athlete. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, and it's like athletes go through this shit, and it's hard on your mental health. I mean,
Yep. and playing. I always say this: playing a gig on drums, especially a rock gig or something. That's like playing a whole basketball game.
Yeah, 100%.
And you have to be in good shape, and injuries are super common. I'd always really focused on playing with the loose technique, which I learned from Steve Davis, and that's always been my thing. And I've always tried to just play loose, and I got all these injuries. And I've seen people like the metal guys who play like that, and they do it their whole lives. So I don't get it.
Right.
I don't understand. Or like Bill Stewart. Bill Stewart has this weird technique that you couldn't, with his wrists all up like this, which you couldn't ever teach someone to do.
No.
You could never do that, but it works for him.
Right. And it's like you said, it's crazy because there's that mind-body disconnect of like what feels or looks a certain way and what is actually feeling inside the body. Because I know there's times where, I'll watch videos back of myself and be like, to see tension that I wasn't perceiving in the moment.
Sure.
And then on the flip side, you might see someone like an Ari Hogan or a Brian Blade who may look like they're tense in a moment, but they're playing with such freeness and looseness, it's not real tension. It's so personal. I feel like it's so hard to know. You have to try to find to know, but as much as you can, being aware of it.
Yep.
In yourself, it's hard.
It's a big mental thing, and Ari Hogan blows my mind. I can it's hard. It's hard to watch it. It's for this for this, because if I just hold my arms like the way he plays, it starts to hurt. And but he plays so lightly, and he's got such a touch, and that's his thing.
It's fluid as shit. I mean, there's nothing. It don't sound tense.
Wow.
Right? It's just
that's wild.
It's wild. Actually, it's hilarious. Quick side note: he did a clinic at UM, and this pretty funny dude who lacks a certain amount of self-awareness, wouldn't read the room, was asked him about his thing, and just he asked him kind of like, why do you look so weird when you play?
That would be my question.
Yeah, and Ari was like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
And it was just like, you could hear a pin drop, and Steve's just like, and the guy's like, and the kid's like, you know what I mean.
Man.
You know what I mean. And Ari's like,
I
don't know what you mean.
He didn't know what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that just goes to show you, it's like, there's levels of this shit. It was hilarious. I mean, it just goes to show you, it's like, some shit works for some people. If I was postured in that certain way, I would be all messed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I learned, sort of textbook drum technique, which I've gone back and forth with sort of over the years. And I mean, and Bill Stewart is my favorite player of the living guys. He's my favorite.
I'm with you on that, bro.
And
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so I would, in not just emulating his playing, but I tried to hold my hands that way, and you just can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't. And so I've always gone for the most natural type movement on the drums. And so to keep your hand in the most natural position, which is not over the top and it's not thumbs up either. Sort of in the middle, and it's loose, and using the whole, the nice big loose stroke so that you get a nice tone and a lot of sound without hitting hard.
Yeah,
because the secret is that you don't need to play hard to get a big sound out of the drums.
Absolutely.
And that's what I really took from Steve Davis.
So after you did, when making that move to Egypt, there's so many big things I can only imagine. I mean, first of all, you were brave as hell, because it's just hard to make that choice to leave everything you know and then adopt yourself into a very different culture. Obviously, did you develop a fascination for this music before you even did it, or I mean, how did that all develop?
Well, first of all, at the time, it didn't seem so daunting because I had been back in Bloomington after college, and I was working at a liquor store in town, working at Big Red. Big Red Liquors. And nothing was really happening. I'd sort of applied, I think, for some grants, study grants, and didn't get those, and didn't really. So now I'd been to Egypt during college, and on that trip had met some local musicians, and the whole trip just changed my life and was mind blowing. And these local guys were amazing. So when I was back at home, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move back to Egypt and try and work it out with these guys. And that's what I did. And I went back and looked them up, and then I started learning Arabic too, because I was sort of thrown into it. And then learning to speak Arabic, and that also became another passion and kind of a second career. I mean, I work, as speaking Arabic and writing. I translate stuff, and I've gotten a degree in Arabic. I went back to get a master's in Arabic years later.
Incredible, man! I didn't even know that.
Yeah. After I'd moved back from Egypt, that first time, so I lived in Egypt from 2009 till 2012. That was kind of the first stint when I met a lot of the guys that I started to play with and started the band with, and started to learn this instrument, this lyre instrument. Then I came back to Bloomington. I spent about 2 years here. And then, 2012 to 14 or so. And then from 2014 to 16, I was at Georgetown. Got a master's in Arabic at Georgetown.
No way. So when the guys that you said you had played with them before you made that move, you already had a relationship with the music just from visiting.
Well, I'd met them on that trip.
Okay.
And actually, in that trip, because it all comes back to the fact that my mother is a historian of Spain. She was a Spanish professor at IU, okay, and a specialist in the Islamic history of Spain. All right. And she'd gone to Egypt when I was still in school to study and work on her own language and do research and stuff. And I went to visit her. And there she met the mother of one of my classmates at music school at UM. Okay? Corinne Stokes. She, who also has had an incredible career as an Arabic scholar. But Corinne was my same year. She was a classical violinist, and her mom was teaching at the American University of Cairo that year. I don't know what she taught, but Corinne was there and was studying violin in a local music school and learning Egyptian music and stuff. And our moms had met and become friends. So as soon as I got there, we all connected, and Corinne introduced me to these people, took me to some concerts, and that's where I met some of the guys that were just mind-blowing. And I saw them playing these new drums that I hadn't seen before, and they were fantastic, and I took lessons. And
Are they receptive to you, like, being a foreigner, wanting to come and adopt the language? And
instant friends. Instant friends. And the cat that I, like, especially got close to, he didn't speak hardly a word of English. I didn't speak any Arabic, but I would go and hang out with him, and he would play, and I would record him, and that's how the whole thing started.
What level are you at with Arabic now? I mean, you're fluent. Would you say?
I speak it fluently, and I read and write pretty well. And I have studied, I've studied classical Arabic, literary Arabic for a long time. I'm not at the level of, professional career translators. I kind of dabble in it. I mean, I do it sort of when it comes up. Other people, like, that's their thing. Corinne, for example, she teaches at NYU Abu Dhabi. Yeah. She has a doctorate in, I don't know if it's just Arabic or literature or something, but she has, like, taken it way farther. But I studied it very seriously for about 5 years, as well as just living there and speaking. And my life over there is I speak Arabic all the time,
Oh. And were you working in Egypt at the time? Like, what were you doing for money? Was it playing gigs? Or, I mean,
there would be gigs. I would teach drum lessons. Taught a lot of drum lessons. There are a lot of American and other private schools, like these ritzy private schools, where I would teach a lot of drum lessons, and those paid pretty well.
Did you have to, like, apply ahead of time, or how did you set all that up?
They came that first one where I worked for almost 3 years. That pretty much that whole first time I was there. Those came through a word of mouth through a buddy of mine who worked at this school, and he just put my name in, so I didn't really have to apply.
That's awesome.
It just came together, and when I go back now, I'm gonna hopefully be doing the same thing. It's a good way to kind of pick stuff up.
So, and that instrument, what is it called again? Lyre.
It's a lyre, which is a small harp, and then has many different names. In Egypt, they call it simsimiya. It's called tambur, or krar, or masankop. Has a lot of different names in different languages. But it's an East African instrument, and it's played all over the place.
Yeah. And where are you at in your development with it? You're what, 7 years into playing this thing, or
since 2009, really.
Yeah.
more than
Oh,
10 now. Well,
yeah, 12 years.
I look at it just like the drums. I just keep working on it.
Yeah.
At this point, and it's been interesting to teach myself an instrument. I always came up having teachers and studying on the drums.
Yeah.
And now I'm really teaching myself this instrument. But the big difference between that and the drums is that there's nothing about learning it that is not musical. What I mean by that is that in drums and stuff, there's all kinds of drum stuff that we work on that is not musical, and we always have this complex about wanting to use it in a gig or whatever. You want to play the lick that you worked on.
Right.
And I can't do that with this instrument. Anything that I play is related to a melody or a song or something, or it's a technique that I develop because I want to play some music. And that's great, I wish that in the drums I could get away from this drum complex that, everybody has.
Yeah.
And so I just am looking for new, just new sounds and new stuff and the effects and different styles of music. And I really want, and I've made a lot of it up on my own at this point. I've just kind of invented stuff. As well as, anybody who plays it that I meet, I go and hang out with them and sit with them and take stuff and work things out. And but I really want people to start writing for the instrument,
People don't? What is the story with it as a contemporary instrument?
Well, it's not used. It's played in all these different traditional settings. Okay, it's a folk instrument in so many different cultures. The entire region of East Africa, 7 or 8 different countries around the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and the whole Horn of Africa and that whole East African region. All of those cultures play these harp-type instruments. But there's no just non-folkloric music using these instruments, and it's not necessarily that I set out to do that, but I just play. I try to find music that I like using these instruments, and I kind of just like music, and so I come up with a lot of different things. I learned folk stuff, and I want to see it all. That's part of my whole project, is to travel to all these places. I want to go all these places and see this instrument and document it and study it. And so I see it just as coming up playing the drums. You study the entire tradition of drumming, and you also do your own thing.
Yeah.
That's for anybody who's a serious musician. That's their baseline. Your baseline is that you learn the whole thing, and then you also play.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I see this.
Is there, so like, okay, I mean, for people who don't know who might be listening, your band's called Otaak. Is I saying that right?
Yeah.
Otaak.
Otaak.
Otaak. Otaak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you form that band around the instrument and your desire to play it? What can you tell people a little bit about the band, how it formed, and what you do and what the plan is for it? And I mean, you've been doing it for a minute. You've been putting records.
The band started with a fantastic singer from the Sudan named Ahmad Saeed Abu Amna. And he came, and I met him also by accident. This whole thing has been one big accident. Okay. About a month after I moved to Cairo, I met four or five guys who all lived together from the Sudan who all played this instrument. And I met them all at once, and all of a sudden, here are these guys playing this instrument that I'd never seen. And this is where I started to hang out. This is just where I would spend time with these guys. And Ahmad came from Sudan on a visit to see these same guys. And he is just a spectacular singer from a particular tradition of Sudanese music. He's Bija. The Bija are a community of Eastern Sudan, okay? And they are the pharaohs, all right? This is a pharaonic instrument. It's an ancient instrument. And he came, and I would hear him sing, and this guy had just a golden voice. And I heard a lot of elements in his singing that sounded like American music, you know. And I just heard the connection. The connection was there with the instrument, the way he would play. This guy is a treasure of music, and
Yeah.
he and I started the band together. And I brought him to the States on 2 different occasions. 2014, when I came back from Egypt that first time, 2012, I was working here at a hotel in Bloomington, and I would some days I'd be in there for 8 hours. The phone wouldn't ring, nobody walk in the door. I would just be there editing videos at the front desk of the hotel of footage that we had from our concerts and stuff. And I worked for about 1.5 years to put together a tour. I got the visa for him. I booked the tour. I got the invitations. I did the whole thing, rehearsed with the guys. And then he came, and we did a tour from here up to Chicago, Milwaukee, and back. And then at the end of 2014, he came a second time. There were about, I think, 4 more gigs then. And so that was Otaak band, and then he stayed in the States. He emigrated and now lives in Canada.
Wow.
And then I kept the name, and so it's sort of just Otaak band is sort of just me,
Right.
and just me. Sometimes I call it Otaak or Otaak band, depending on if there's people with me.
Yeah.
And then there's always been rotating guys. That second time that Ahmed came, we had a different band. And in Egypt, we played with guys, and now the current lineup has a bunch of new guys who are also the bad boys.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to getting back there now. We're gonna be hitting.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
when you go into the studio, what's the approach like with this kind of music, and even just like the technical stuff of the instrument itself? How do you mic it? Does it have an output?
Well, they can. I've had ones that had a 1/4-inch jack. You can rig it up with a pickup and a 1/4-inch jack. I've seen that. I typically use a contact mic for it. A contact mic, but the real tone is with just a nice condenser mic, a little ways away from it, because the real tone of it is that acoustic tone.
Yeah.
And I've tried the effects. I've tried blending the tones and the wah-wah. And I've done all that.
Oh shit.
And I like to kind of record with multiple tones like that, because then you can blend stuff together. And
Has anybody used the instrument in that way, like you, with pedals and stuff like that?
Nope.
That's awesome.
This
dude.
is my little corner of Lyre playing.
Anyway,
Nikki's Lyre corner. and that's what I'm interested in doing. I'm just interested in finding new sounds, trying new stuff, especially because each instrument is unique. You cannot make 2 that sound the same. And so that's why I like to collect them too.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day I'll have a little museum of them, because it's a limited instrument that has a limited range, but it has this unique tone that will work sometimes, and sometimes it won't. So on this last record, I worked with that a lot, layering different instruments on the same tune to get the different colors together, and then doing playing through effects through like the contact mic, or reamping the acoustic signal, which is already kind of the nicer tone, and then putting that through different things.
Right.
And just messing around. And so I'm dipping my toes in the world of like guitar effects and stuff. I think I'm like too old to get into that for real.
Yeah.
But I do want to eventually kind of build the setup kind of around how the instrument works, and find appropriate stuff to because to just use the effects and all that, it starts to sound weird, because the real tone of it is just as an acoustic instrument. So, but it's just a lot of messing around.
I mean, and what's the tuning situation with it?
It's typical. I mean, in some traditions, there's pentatonic scales, different pentatonic scales. A lot of the Egyptian guys play what major or minor scales, all the scales with the 1/4 tones. Yeah. Well, you can tune it any way you want. It's just open strings, just like a harp, and you can tune it whatever way you want. Sometimes the thing just goes out of tune, and you end up with some funky sounding thing, and I'll work with that. Sometimes what the other lyre player in the band and I are working on is just creating this duo that leads the band, kind of a unit where we can be in different registers. One's kind of in the bass part, the other's the melody, like half of the scale on one side, and he tunes the other side of the scale. Stuff like that to kind of lead the band as a unit, change tunings together, and he likes to collect these instruments too. So he has a whole bunch of ones, and he's developing his own techniques on it and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's just tons of stuff to kind of wade through, and we want to try and do all this. Plus, the 3 drummers of the band. Well, there's 6 of us, and we're all drummers. But the 3 guys who will play percussion on stage just have a whole array of hand drums and shakers and stuff, and that's our show. Just to basically be up there jamming.
Yeah.
With all of these different instruments.
How much of it is songs? How much of it is improv? How much of it is both? Like, how do you orchestrate it?
These guys have grown up in the Egyptian and Nubian and Sudanese traditions, which are vast. Okay, they've grown up in them, and they know millions of songs, and so just as jazz guys come up, learning all these recordings and learning tunes and playing the forms of songs. That's your base, and then you improvise. I want to do the same thing with this group. We have this basis of scales and tunings and rhythms and songs and stuff, but then we can also make up our own tunes with these influences and be able to improvise as a group. That's what I'm really trying to get this group to do, is do the group improvisation thing where you can create something that sounds like a song in the moment. It's not just jamming on D minor for 30 minutes.
Right.
You can create a song in the moment with different, so you got to listen and pay attention and watch for the cues, because we can give each other cues to switch over, and then bam, we're back.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I want this group to do.
Does anybody solo, or is it all sort of just building melodies?
Well, because the lyre is a limited instrument, you typically only have 5 or 6 strings, and so 5 or 6 notes to work with. Yeah. There's a lot of repetition of these sort of licks. There's a lot of licks that you have, and songs have a melody that in a folk song, that's all there is. There's a melody and there's a rhythm, and you play that melody, and then you sing the melody. There's a verse, and then you play it, and then you sing another verse, and you play the melody, and then you sing another verse and play it, and that just goes on and on. And so the idea of sort of soloing over a form, as in, one of our standards, that sort of doesn't exist because, first of all, well, there are no chord changes, there's no harmony, and you're not counting bars, you're just going by the length of the words. So in a lot of these rhythms, all of a sudden, I find myself going back in the middle of a bar because they finished the phrase and then we started the melody in the middle, Because
how do you put that all together? I mean, it's like, are you thinking, like, coming from like a Western school, are you thinking in 4-bar phrases, or have you eliminated feeling phrases in that typical way?
No, my ear just kind of creates those phrases naturally, and I want to hear those phrases. And sometimes when I'll do a fill because I hear kind of a phrase ending, but nothing happened, or they didn't change, or somebody does a fill anywhere. Yeah. Oftentimes, but these guys always know the words to the song, so the fill comes at the end of the words. Like, there's still a fill to go back to the melody, but it comes at the end of the words, not at the end of a 4-bar phrase.
Right.
These guys don't really know how to count bars. Like, that's a very Western thing. You just they know rhythms, and they know how to play these rhythms. And like, I mean, it's funny. Like, sometimes you can count it out, and sometimes not. But I've said many times, because sometimes the dude just starts playing the rhythm, and I can't hear it. I would say, okay, count it off.
Yeah.
He said, so he'll go, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's amazing.
But like, count and then start the beat at the same tempo. That's not a thing. Yeah.
No. So then, like, what these like revolutions of the cycles of these phrases, they end up falling in odd meters and mix. Is it all mixed, or does there ever become a sort of like an 8-bar or 5-bar, whatever? Or no? It's just open.
They do, like, I've heard that, and I've also heard not.
Yeah.
In that bija music, that's another thing that really impressed me about Ahmed, the original singer. In the folk songs that he would sing, and when he would come up with melodies of songs of his, he would often do them in 4-bar phrases, and he played with harmony. He played harmony. That for him there is no thing called harmony. He just knew it by ear. It's fascinating. It was totally fascinating to hear this guy who has no connection to anything that we do over here.
Yeah.
Do the same thing, do the same stuff, and just hear it instantly. So I've heard that, and I've also heard things just kind of happen wherever, or it seems to be wherever. Yeah. And sometimes there are transitions, or they'll change the beat. But I would say most of the time, a song, like, there is a right and a wrong way to play a song. Like, songs typically have their words and their melody and their rhythm.
Yeah.
And that's how you play it. You can't just go changing the beat whenever you feel it, or playing over the bar line, or disguising the beat. It's not quite like in swing where there's this kind of pulse that we all play together.
Yeah.
But you're free to kind of work within this pulse. The rhythms, these folk rhythms, are often their own. A rhythm is kind of its own style of music. And it has a vocabulary, and it has things that work, and it has typical phrases that people play within this rhythm. So that's something that's fascinating too.
But when you say, like, within the rhythm, there's like a specific rhythmic phrase that's attached to each song or each idea. Like, what could you sing it out, or count it? Like, what kind of figures are we talking about?
Well, I mean, there are so many different rhythms. For example, there's a beat in 7 that's a folk rhythm that people dance to. Kind of has a clave. Okay?
Yeah.
So, right there, that's a dance rhythm. That's a popular rhythm. You hear that a lot in Lyre music. That's a sort of a lyre playing rhythm, and people dance to it, and it's super funky, and it has a lot of fills and stuff that you hear people play. And it's like, but it's sort of a whole style on its own.
Yeah.
Because they play so many songs in this rhythm, it sort of becomes a style on its own. And just the way that jazz guys might say, "Do you know such and such a tune?" They'll say, "Do you play this rhythm? Do you know this rhythm?" Because there's a bajillion songs that could use it, and so it's a sort of a style on its own.
That's badass. I like the idea of that, like the categorizing. I don't know, like a language just from rhythm.
Exactly. It's a little bit different than swing, which, swing is the American rhythm.
Right.
And so many things have grown out of swing, and there's a million ways to play swing. So you could sort of find different styles within something you can identify as swing. It might be the swing with the hi-hat and the ride cymbal and the walking bass line. It could be, the sloshy New Orleans thing. It could be the go-go swing, go-go beat, like with the backbeat.
Yeah.
Those are all swing, but they're all kind of a style.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I mean, so when you when you head back, do you have like concerts planned and stuff? Are you what is your mindset on tackling?
Yeah, I want this group to get playing. A lot of venues have been kind of on the fence. I had a couple of concerts canceled back in May. They were supposed to happen, but they extended, sort of, not a lockdown, but just sort of they were just closing places. So we had So I'm hoping that there's more of an opportunity now. We just want to hit the ground running, contacting places. I want to get the embassies involved. I'm looking for just funding for this whole project. You know, I need the big deal sponsorship if we're gonna kind of keep this going.
Yeah.
And then get in the studio, and I have my stuff, and I record at home a lot, and we just want to start kind of cranking stuff out.
And what's the process of like booking there, and how do the gigging work and venues and stuff?
Venues tend to have, you know, just like here, they have a kind of a point person. There are, several cultural centers there that you can get in touch with. The embassies themselves sponsor a lot of stuff, and then the venues. The problem with the sort of more Western style venues is that they don't really want to have stuff like ours. They tend to want people who are just going to play rock or my salsa band. I have a salsa band over there.
No shit.
9-piece Egyptian salsa band.
That's awesome.
So we have a salsa night once a month over there too.
That's amazing.
So the sort of bar type places are not quite as accessible, but I mean we also want to play places that will be, you know, in our vein. I mean, this group just has to play live, just like I've always come up playing. You just have to play a lot and play a lot and play a lot, and this group has to learn on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people, I mean, I was having a discussion with someone before I left about, they were saying that, when you come out and like the way the market is nowadays, when you come out, you got to have the slick video and the website and everything has to be super together and you have all those social media. And okay, yeah, I get that, but like, I mean, I just want to play. Like this group should just like to learn on stage, and people are kind of scared of that. Like people are kind of scared of this idea of learning on stage because that's not a thing.
Yeah,
that's not a thing to watch a band figure it out on stage like many of the greats did.
Right.
You know, that we've studied.
Yeah.
But I want to do that because that's when you're just in it. That's when the stuff happens.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah. And
how feasible do you think it'll? I mean, obviously COVID depending, but like to bring the group down here to the States and hopefully to Miami.
Yeah, it's just a matter of money.
Yeah,
it is purely a matter of money. To get 6 guys over here from Egypt, you know, you need visas. You need lodging, you need all that. So, but it does happen. I mean, the United States is not too good about that. Like there are festivals and everything, but unless you're just a superstar,
right.
they're not gonna pay for all your travel. They're happy to say, and because I contacted a lot of festivals back in the day, and they said we're happy to have you, but you have to arrive to our festival.
Right, you have to pay for
it. the European festival circuit is probably a lot better about that. There's just more stuff. I mean, and that was why last year in Europe was so rough because musicians there really count on the whole summer festival circuit, and it was gone.
Yeah.
Last summer, Europe, Spain, and all 0.
That's crazy.
So,
I mean,
it was
I
rough.
did a European. Actually, with Digo, we were playing with a blues artist, and you know we wanted to do this Europe tour with him, and he wanted to bring us over because we'd been doing all these runs in the States. And the only reason he could even bankroll it because of the work visas were like $3,000 a piece or something insane, not including the flight, round trip, and all that. And he signed to the label. It was just like one of the festivals. It was just a big had the cash to kind of create the budget, and then all the other gigs. But it was still operating somewhat as a loss, I'm sure. And it's just like, it's just crazy, like that, to make that work financially. The whole thing, it's hard.
Yep.
No, I don't have to tell you. I mean, I appreciate that you're doing it. I mean,
man, it cost when I brought Ahmed years ago and set up this 3-week tour. Okay, where and I drove the bus and rented the bus and hotels and all that. I spent $10,000 to take 4 guys driving from here to Chicago or from here to Minneapolis or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean the costs are huge, but it does happen. You do see people traveling. So I want to know who the hell is making it happen.
I wanted to ask you too. I know this is maybe a little a weird change of subject, but I know you were in Egypt during the riots and all that. I mean,
Yep.
can you speak about that a little bit, because that must have been a crazy life experience.
Yeah, it was wild. It was totally wild. Well, those protests had not come out of nowhere. Egypt has a long tradition of protests. But I lived in downtown Cairo at that time, January 2011. And when it popped off, all of my friends were the first ones there. All of my, the people my age, my generation, they're the ones who had grown up under this one president, Mubarak. And Egypt had kind of stagnated. It still had a booming tourist industry, and somehow life was kind of going on, but had massive problems of poverty, and they took the inspiration from the Tunisian protests, which started up right before that. And so when it popped off, all of my friends were the first ones down there, and they wanted me down there with them, and I lived right near there, and so I was down in there. And it was crazy downtown Cairo literally became the Wild West.
Yeah,
there was guys out there, every street corner. My dad's just handed me the newspaper article that they wrote about me in the Bloomington paper.
Oh shit!
A harrowing
awesome.
tale from Egypt.
No way.
There you
When
go.
did that come out? Is that recent?
That is 2011, March 2011.
My God.
Yep.
Did you do an interview with them about the?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of my parents. Bill Struther. He's he was the father of a classmate of mine, friends of my parents. And he was a journalist at the newspaper.
Yeah.
And he came in and talked to me about it. And the picture is me holding the lyre, which is that's what I brought back with me from when I escaped from the Egyptian protest.
Jesus.
I mean,
colors.
I split spontaneously. This is maybe 10 days into the protests, and it became very dangerous for foreigners, journalists, students, anybody, because there were all kinds. The government was spreading a lot of rumors about the protesters themselves. They said they were American agents. They said anything, and so for someone like me to just be downtown was not cool. And it was my friends who said, "You need to go now. Go."
Yeah.
And I threw together a suitcase and grabbed my instrument and went to the airport.
Yeah.
And this was after having been in one of the protests. I got hit in the head. I got the scar from it.
I remember you telling you got hit with a
Yep. I caught the rock of freedom in Egypt. No, but yeah, it was crazy. And sadly, since then, Egypt, the dreams that they had at that time have gone totally down the toilet. And Egypt right now is in a real rough situation with on every level.
Yeah.
And that's sad to see, and that's difficult to be there, because there's a general depression in my generation over there.
Yeah.
About the outcome of this revolution. That was 10 years ago already.
How does that affect your ability to do what you want to do there musically?
That's a daily struggle, Yeah. On top of the fact that Cairo is just an impossible place to live. Cairo is double the size of New York and has no rules.
Do you drive there?
I have driven 2 or 3 times, and it's terrifying.
I can't even. You drove in Miami, so you've had a minor preparation for insanity. This can't
Miami
even.
Miami has nothing to do with it. Not even the same ballpark. No, coming to New York City, I come to New York, I say, hey, this is pretty nice. It looks clean, and people are stopping and everything. It's not too crowded. And Cairo is insane. And so, you spend 3 hours sitting in a traffic jam, and it's polluted, and it's over 100 degrees. It's been over 100 degrees every day since May already.
And you probably don't have AC in your car, do you?
There may or may not.
May or may not.
But so to it takes 3 hours to get home, and then you want to go and play or be, and God forbid, be creative. And, you're just like sick of everything. No, it's a really rough place to live, and I'm always kind of conflicted about that. Where
Doesn't
this
seem like it's affected your wanting to do this, though, because you only brought it up because I asked you.
Well, that's what I'm conflicted about, man. Like, that's where I do kind of my stuff, but it's such a rough place to live. But I've been over there for a long time, and I have my really good friends there. I have this great community of friends. And I'm happy to be with those guys, too, because they get it, music-wise. Like, they get it. And they get what I'm trying to do, and they want to be a part of it. And they are the I'm talking about the guys that are in the band now. They are the generation who knows all this folk music and have grown up in these traditions and are going to develop them and let them evolve in the future. Like, it's them, And so I know that, like, if this band can do the thing that it should, it'll be the shit.
Yeah. I
So-
want to see you guys, man. I can't wait. I hope I get an opportunity.
First of all, you're always welcome.
Yeah.
Always welcome to come visit. It's totally worth the visit.
That would be sick.
Totally worth the visit. And like a month in Egypt is going to be a whole lot cheaper than a month in New York City.
I
You
bet.
can believe that. So, Egypt is a fascinating country, and there's so much to see, and it's 100% worth the visit. But living there is pretty rough.
Pretty intense, man.
But if I want this group to go to the next level, so I'm kind of willing to run it into the ground before I become an accountant or whatever.
Yeah.
Go to law school or something.
Dude. Well, I mean, for everyone listening, where can they find out all your stuff? Check this band out. Check out everything you're doing. Stay in touch.
That would be great. That's otaakband.com, OTAAK band, otaakband.com. And then there's YouTube. I'm going to try and be having more stuff on YouTube regularly. But pretty much that. I've got the other social media too. There's Instagram and other things. But pretty much the website and the YouTube.
Instagram's at Otaak Band, just straight up, right?
Yeah, everything is Facebook and everything is Otaak Band.
There's not a lot of competition for that name. So,
Yeah. I'm keeping the name.
Yeah,
ain't gonna change.
that's all.
And we're just gonna. But I am pretty optimistic about the music, which is like the thing that I am sure about. Is the music, and I want this group to to make it to the top level.
Yeah,
the guys deserve it. And it's kind of our own style of music. We're kind of inventing our own style.
I feel like you can't go wrong when you're innovating. I mean, it may take. It's like it's a thing that takes time. It's like the harder road than just jumping into something that's already exists, a paradigm that exists.
And it's not innovating. It's just playing the music that you like. I write songs, and I just play stuff that I like. I play, and after making the last album, especially, my approach is just sounds that go together.
Yeah.
And
I
so
feel that,
sound.
dude. I identify with that a lot. I mean, I really
That's the bag. Sounds that work.
That's it.
But then I love, and that's the cool thing about these folk instruments is that and the drums too. There are so many different types of drums, and so it's just about I want to use all this stuff, And then if we're gonna get all the electronics and the SPDS and have the looper going and all that stuff too, well, hey,
Fire.
It can get nasty. Yeah, man, we like your duo. We could get with your duo and do some nasty stuff.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
Actually, I was actually going to say, that group, especially the twin, is like, there's a lot of what you were saying that reminds me of the mindset we were in, especially starting out, trying to figure out, like you were saying, when you said about figuring out on stage. I really feel that way. It took us a while to figure out what the hell we wanted. Like, it's like almost like we had a concept or something that we knew we weren't there yet. And we're constantly like, God, we know what it's going to be, but we're just not there yet. We don't know what technology is going to help or what we have to do. And it's a struggle between like what playing the recorded material and then just improvising. And And
Exactly.
sometimes there's magic that exists just in the improvising, but there's also sometimes you need that structure. And this last 4 days were interesting because it's a lot easier to just kind of be free on your like local gig where you're listening off the drums acoustically. But then when it's like, all right, PA systems and big subs and like the monitors, it's like, okay, that's when in our mind we're like, we want to be more organized because things can get, it can feel heavy to feel input free or something on that much sound. But then it was like, wait, now we're too restricted. Now we're removing the thing. So I feel you on that, like trying to, it's like you said, you can make the videos and you can do all that shit, but you have to do this shit on the stage to learn it, especially if it's something you're inventing. It hasn't really, it's not like, here's the song, verse, chorus, bridge.
Yeah,
Feels,
and
you know,
and that's cool, and that's experience also. I mean, you're learning from the restricted in-ear thing with the loops, and then you're learning from jamming on stage acoustic, and it can all. I mean, and it's either going to work or not, and then you just follow the stuff that works. And
I've been really resisting in-ears, man. I had a freaking guitar practice amp, partly because I run my SPDS to it to get the shitty reverb off of it, just because I think it gives the sounds a vibe.
Okay.
I would never use claps, 808s like dry. Like,
okay.
It just doesn't do it for me. But once I started having a little wetness to them, they fit. Maybe it's just two of us. So I want to fill up sound, but you know, it gets hairy without having the in-ears on the loops, but having the amps like blasting. In-ears freak me out, man.
And people have been telling me recently that they've had a lot of hearing problems, man, from using in-ears. I mean, playing with in-ears that are too loud for a long time.
That's supposed to protect you too.
Is a problem. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Right, but when it comes to like the loops and stuff, there's no other way. I mean, because if you playing with loops on stage is dangerous if you can't hear.
Yeah.
So but that's a real consideration.
Yeah. But dude, sorry, go ahead.
For sure, any kind of samples or anything you want for your stuff, man, you let me know. You got it.
Dude, that would be amazing, dude.
Hand drum stuff, lyre stuff, funny, twangy sounds.
Actually, I want you to send me a voice note of that thing you were singing in 7.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
because I need to work on, like, I realized this even just on this tour with there's a bass player now, there's now Panagiotis. I don't know his last name, and I've just been working on saying he's Greek, and he's doing all these crazy, you know, he's so in touch with the odd meters that come out of the traditions of the music where he's from, but. Just seeing guys like tapping and doing what you just did, singing, I'm like, I need that in my, like, I'm missing that. That's a hole in my musical paradigm.
And
so you got to send me that. I'm going to practice it.
Yeah, and the odd meter thing is a totally different approach. There are a bunch of odd meter rhythms that are all dance rhythms and so are like funky and danceable.
Right, it's not
a totally different approach to it than we like would learn on drum set or whatever.
Totally.
So I'll send you a bunch of that stuff. And man, ask him. How do you pronounce his name?
I think it's Panagiotis. We call him Pana, but Panagiotis.
Well, ask him about Michael Oliveira.
Michael Oliveira.
Do you know who he is?
Now the name sounds really familiar.
He's a Cuban drummer who lives in Madrid, who I met last year, who is a miracle. And he's played. The two of them have played a lot with Alfredo Rodriguez.
Okay. You know about this guy then?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen him in that group. Yeah, but ask him about Michael Oliveira.
I will.
And check him out big time. He's one of the baddest.
Yeah.
And then let's just keep it pushing, man.
Yeah, dude.
And let's see if we can do something soon. I really wanted to come to Miami this visit, but it just blew by. I can't even believe it.
Well, when you do get an opportunity, let me know, because like there's so much opportunity here to do your thing and whatever. We'll set up a bunch of stuff for you to do.
That sounds real good.
Collaborations and gigs and whatever. It's so open here right now, and everyone's got that vibe of like trying to bring people down right now, especially during this pandemic. Just bringing artists down, trying to bring people here, build awareness what we're doing, but also learn. I mean, it gets isolated a little bit down here, so we need guys. It's hard to come down here on tour. So we've been people in this community, bands like Electric Kiff and stuff, like trying to like really integrate with like the New York guys, the elite level guys, try to bring awareness to the scene, but also just like get guys down here to play so we can see
That
it.
sounds real good.
Yeah.
Great.
My man.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Let's make it happen. Man, thank you, Aaron. This is great.
This is awesome.
I'm so happy that we got to reconnect, man, and talk. And let's be staying in touch, okay?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, man.
Appreciate you. I'm gonna.
Thanks a lot. You too.
Okay.